No greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about the never-ending story. Now! Hey, y'all. It's 2022. How the hell are you? The last time I talked to you was 2021. You remember, back in 2021, it was, I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks ago, the last video I made back in 2021. Yeah, and seemed like everything was going great. You know, unemployment was under 4%. America was open for business and getting back to normal. And, you know, the stonks, those keep going up because that's what stonks do, no matter what the hell is going on with the rest of the economy or the other, I don't know, 7.8 billion people who don't actually own any stocks. But I digress. Yeah, it's only been a few weeks, and now all of a sudden, it seems the worm has turned. News has gotten dark. It's almost as if everybody was just trying to spit shine happiness into the last few weeks of December so that we would have a normal retail season, a normal travel holiday season, and everybody would spend money. And now that that shit's over, reality is coming knocking. So, what I thought I would do today is perhaps unravel one more small thread in the sweater of bullshit that the billionaires who control the government and control the economy are trying to dress you in with this little sweater of awesomeness that makes you believe as long as you work and you shop and you literally don't do anything else, everything is just fine and dandy. Want to take a look at the thread of bullshit as I pull? Okay, cool. Here we go. A record 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in November. Hey, November, back in 2021, you remember when they were telling us that the unemployment rate was going back to a completely normal level of sub 4%, and thus not giving the poors money and starving them out was finally working because apparently the unemployment rate was so low that apparently all the poors were just coming back in droves to beg for the opportunity to scrub fast food toilets for minimum wage. And they touted that shit all through the Christmas season, and it turns out that after the numbers were analyzed, even though the unemployment rate was low, we also had a record number of job quits. We're going to take a look at where those quits were, and later on, I'm going to give you a quick lesson into how that seemingly incongruous meeting between we have low unemployment and we have a record number of quits comes to be, so hang on for that. A record 4.5 million Americans voluntarily left their jobs in November, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This pushed the quits rate to 3%, matching the high from back in September of 2021. Workers were most likely to quit their jobs in the hospitality industry, which had by far the highest rate of quits at 6.1% in November, as well as those in healthcare. The numbers in transportation, warehousing, and utilities also increased. Quote, workers continued to quit their jobs at a historic rate. The low-wage sectors directly impacted by the pandemic continued to be the source of much of the elevated quitting. So, none of this should be surprising if you have been paying attention to the content that I have been making for the better part of the last 6 months. People who make the least and have to deal with angry customers the most are being the first to just finally throw their hands up in the air and walk off the job. Why? Because it doesn't matter if they slave away 80, 90, 100 hours a week. At their current rate of pay, no matter how hard they work, there is no opportunity for social mobility. Those people will never be able to buy a home. Those people will never be able to afford to pay for their kids to go to college. And the time off the treadmill of capitalism that we got due to the shutdown literally brought this revelation to the minds of tens of millions of low-paid workers. And now, well, it seems all those entry-level jobs, all of those low-skill jobs that are apparently pish-posh anybody can do, well, it seems nobody wants to do them, and the entire economy is scratching its head trying to figure out how such a thing could possibly happen. It's really wild, huh? The UCLA Labor Center said in a report that nearly a quarter of fast food workers in the Los Angeles area contracted COVID over the past 18 months. Less than half of them had been notified by their employer that they'd been potentially exposed to the virus. Including layoffs and discharges, the number of total separations was 6.3 million in the month of November. Hotels and restaurants registered the biggest increase in separations, while also logging the biggest decline in open jobs, according to the data. Now, this trend is basically due to two very simple things. Number one, the very same people who decry burger flipping as not worth anything more than minimum wage continue to constantly scream and complain and yell both in social media and inside actual fast food locations all across America, bemoaning the fact that it takes them 15 minutes to get a fucking Egg McMuffin or a Mocha Douche Frappuccino. And gosh darn it, why can't the poors just work harder? And so what happens is because of assholes like that, assholes, these people continue to quit their jobs. Now, the reason why there aren't as many openings, even though so many people are quitting, is because A, employers are being forced to change their tune and pay a lot more money, so people quitting shitty $8 an hour fast food jobs are finding slightly better $14 an hour fast food jobs somewhere down the road. And of course, number two, it's because businesses have finally thrown their hands up in the air and they're just closing their dining rooms and shrinking their staff because they figured out that it is impossible to both get up to full speed and B, not pay more money to laborers for them to be able to do so. And so, greedy capitalists are going to err on the side of paying fewer people money rather than spending money to make money, because they're capitalists and spending money to make money only applies to poor people who don't have access to large sums of capital. Now, of course, articles with titles such as this really freak out the capitalist, financier, investor class. Not because they didn't know about it, just because they're concerned that if this gets released and enough people read it, they might actually get concerned and start thinking that if there is still such a hole in the labor market that they could probably afford to demand even more money than they're currently making. So, of course, what the wealthy capitalists do when news like this hits is they send out some of their talking heads and play actors to, tell you what the real problem is. Not that wages are low, just that there are 45 other problems that people should be focused on instead, and then the economy would just magically work right. Here, let me show you what one of those bullshit talking head people look like. Mike Rowe on record 4.5 million people quitting their jobs in November, quote, "This will impact every single American." Oh, Mike Rowe with the hard-hitting recitation of facts. Yeah, wow. For those of you who don't know Mike, for the better part of the last decade, Mike Rowe has built a personality around himself, hosting a show called Dirty Jobs, in which he focuses on all sorts of manual labor trades and how hard work and the salt of the earth and craftsmen, they really fix all the problems that plague all the rest of us. This is his whole thing. I'll get more into Mike's professional LARPing career in just a moment. Fox business personality and How America Works narrator Mike Rowe cautioned that, quote, "every single American will feel the effects from the record number of U.S. workers quitting their jobs." On Varney & Co., Rowe reacted to the Labor Department data, which showed 4.5 million Americans either quit or changed their jobs in November. Quote, "This is a conversation about our workforce and the imbalanced nature of it, and the way that's going to impact every single American who shares my addiction to smooth roads, indoor plumbing, and affordable energy." Oh, look at that. Mike Rowe, he's the real salt of the earth. That's right. Addiction to roads and plumbing. Nothing more American than being addicted to roads and plumbing, and other than possibly being addicted to red meat, carbohydrates, everything being processed with sugar, and consuming a shit ton of alcohol so that you can forget your last day of work before you wake up and have to do it all over again. Quote, "I've never seen anything like this," Rowe said. "I've heard from the energy industry, the flooring industry, the restaurant industry, the cable and broadband industry. They're all struggling with the same basic problem. Yeah, they're not offering enough money to fill the open positions at their companies because they would rather do less volume than, pay more people a living wage, because fuck those people, they're poor." That basic problem, Rowe believes, is how to make a persuasive case for opportunities that exist within blue-collar industries. Quote, that interestingly is one of the few things that we can control. We need to explain to kids that working with your hands, learning a skill that's in demand, can still lead to prosperity. Ah, there it is again, that old salt of the earth approach from Mike Rowe. Hey kids, stop dreaming so big. You don't need to go to college. You could just, clean my shitty toilet. And, of course, the more of you out there are, well then, the lower the price will be for me to have to pay somebody to come and fix my shitty toilet. It's almost like Mike is, being self-serving. He's double dipping on this one because he's also doing the work of the billionaire class who wants the poors to believe that they shouldn't expect anything better. Rowe put the onus on educators to change the perception of good jobs in higher education. Quote, it can't be higher education and everything else is some vocational consolation prize. We need to set the table fairly. We need to do a better job globally of shining a light on skilled labor stories. Wow, that's really convenient. Now, can I show you why this is utter bullshit and why Mike Rowe is literally a fucking LARPer who works for billionaires to make poor people feel better about deciding they're not worth as much of a dream or a chance or a shot at something better? Would you like to know a little more about talking head du jour? Well, here's your reminder that Mike Rowe went to Overlee High School outside of Nottingham, Maryland, where he excelled in theater and singing. He then studied at Essex Community College and graduated from Towson University with a degree in communications. That's right, Mike Rowe went to a college whose largest fucking thing of note is that they have a bitchin' badass downhill varsity ski team. Yeah, Mike went there to get a liberal arts degree in communications. And then you know what he did with that liberal arts degree? He went out and made about $30 million LARPing as a handyman. Quote, in an interview with Guideposts, he explained that early in his life growing up in Baltimore, he was inspired by how good his grandfather was at building things, but unfortunately it wasn't easy for him. I took the shop class offered in school and applied myself, but the bookshelf I made turned out lopsided. The metal box I welded didn't close tightly. My grandfather's mechanical gene seemed to have skipped me, and my shortcomings made me grow insecure and resentful. Yes, in fact, so insecure and so resentful that Mike Rowe went out, became a professional actor, and made $30 million LARPing as somebody who knows which end of the screwdriver you use to put together a goddamned IKEA bookcase. And last but not least, a reminder that somewhere in between going to downhill skiing university to get a liberal arts degree and making $30 million LARPing as a fucking general contractor, Mike Rowe was an opera singer with the Baltimore Opera. And then, well, he kept leaving that to go to work at QVC, where he could be a presenter for fine projects at any time of day. Literally, you could go onto QVC at 3:30 in the morning, and there was Mike Rowe selling slap chops. But don't worry, everybody. Mike Rowe wants you to know that there's no shame in becoming a plumber or an electrician. In fact, the more of you, the better. So what does all of this mean for you, the average viewer at home, the fellow member of the working class? Well, to start with, it means that the wealthy capitalists are still running scared, trying to do anything and everything possible to convince the poors to go back to work for as little money as possible, because their average increased rate of profitability of 32% over the course of 2021 in every single industry, sans finance, where the number was even higher, is something they would like to continue living. They really like making 33% profit off your labor while you work for next to nothing. And they're even willing to get professional LARPers to come out and tell you how awesome it would be if you just got off your lazy ass like they did and went out and became a general contractor like they did, even though they're a fake general contractor who got a degree from a liberal arts college and sang in a fucking opera. So everybody, don't believe the hype. Don't listen to the wealthy shitbird capitalists who demand that you get off your lazy ass and go do some shit for as little as humanly possible. Fuck those people. A, you go back to work if you want and when you want, and B, you don't settle for less than you require to maintain a satisfactory work-life balance. And until you can find that job, withhold your labor, because your labor is a commodity, and out here in the free market where the capitalists play, well, any limited commodity sells for the highest price possible. So go ahead, people, go get a bidding war going and go get that bag. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.